Hello, today is Thursday. Welcome back. I'm going to label it Thankful Thursday because I'm thankful that it's almost Friday, which means the weekend is very near and I so desperately need the weekend because I need some rest and some time away from school. How about you? I'm sure. All right, let's get started with our daily activities, which are to look at our calendar, to update our calendar collector, and then we are going to go on a scavenger hunt. Not really go on a scavenger hunt, but we will be doing some things that would require you to have your number corner journal and possibly some colored pencils or crayons. So while we are updating our calendar, looking at the function machine and our calendar collector, if you want to be looking for your materials, I would highly recommend you do so. Okay? So today is the 4th, and maybe you've already seen what it looks like, but you put in a 4, now comes the 13. So on day 1, it looks like we added 3. And then on day 2, it looks like we were adding 5. Day 3, adding 7. So day 4, our input number was 4. Because it is the 4th day of Number Corner in March, and our output was 13. So that is a difference of what? How many? A difference of 9. So, what can we say now about that in relationship to the others? Maybe that each number that comes out is 3 more than the day before. Each output, and I'll abbreviate number, is 3 more than the day before. I wonder if we have enough evidence to solidify our thinking for a program. Like, what is the function? What rule is being repeated over and over and over again? And I'm going to go ahead and tell you we don't have enough information. We're going to have to keep observing to see what happens next. Now, let's look at our calendar collector. So yesterday, I spun a 1/3, and you guys got a 1/12, so I need to update that on my sheet here. So I think I'm ahead of you, because 1/3 is bigger than 1/12, and 1/3 is also bigger than 1/6, which is what you guys got a couple days ago. So I think I'm ahead. I guess we'll have to wait and see for sure. But for now, let's go ahead and spin. What are we going to spin today? First one is for you. You guys got another 1/12. And I'm not too sad about that, because that means maybe I'm still in the lead. I don't know. I'm really hoping for a big number. Okay, next spin is for Miss Tramell, for me. Oh my gosh, I promise you, I just clicked it, and that's what I got, and I'm so excited about it, because it looks like I'm for sure probably in the lead now, because I got one of the biggest, the biggest fraction on our spinner, right? How many 12s would it take to make a half? We would need 6 12s to make a half. I guess we'll find out. Okay, on to the main event for today. That was a quick update. And again, you will need your workbooks and some color pencils or crayons. Not markers, because markers bleed through. So no markers. Not even a pen. It would take too long to color. And while you're getting that out, you might just want to refresh your memory on some of our terms here. Because today, we're going to be talking about decimals. All right, we're ready in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Does this look familiar? Does it look familiar? Remember we did something back in the month, a couple months ago maybe, called the Great Wall of Base 10. Do y'all remember that? it looks kind of like this. So let's fill it in. If this thing is 1, what is the area of this strip? And what is the area of the small square? Do you remember? Well, let's think about it. This is one hole and it has 100 smaller squares inside of it. And I only have one strip of that, which is how many small squares? We need 10 small squares. And how many would it take to make a hole? 100. So how do I write that as a fraction? Okay, so 10 100ths. Anybody have a different fraction that I could use for this? How many of these strips are in one hole? 10. So if you said 1/10, you probably need to kiss your brain because you, my dear, are correct. So I could say 1/10 or I could say 10/100ths. Okay, so if this is a 10th, what is this? It's 1/100th. It takes 100 of them to make up our whole. So I would write it like this. Here's my fraction, 1/100th. Are we good? All right. So, we didn't have to spend too much time on that because I know you guys have done the Great Wall of Base 10. And you're probably really familiar with it. And hopefully, if you're not or if you're still struggling, that just that quick review was helpful to you because now I'm ready to go on a decimal grid scavenger hunt. And you may see those words written right here because that is what we are going to do. So, in your notebook, you have a page that has 6 grids on it. And it probably looks something like, let's see if I have that page. It looks like this. Okay? So you have A, B, all the way up to F. Which is page 68 and 69. So turn there if you're not there already. All right, and we are going to start with grid A. I am going to give you a direction, and you are going to color it in, and preferably using your red colored pencil or red crayon. Okay, I want you to find 2/10 on grid A and color it in red. You got to find it. Now, when you find it, please do not just color random squares all over the grid. We need to make sure that each square is touching another square on a full side. So it would make a lot of sense if you colored it much like we just talked about what our tenths look like and what our hundredths look like. So here's a refresher. Okay, so I'm looking for you to find 2/10. Work quickly and efficiently. All right, if you need to pause this video, please do so before I give the answer. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, here is 2/10. So I'm going to use this to shade in my tenths. Here's 1/10, and I'm trying to make it perfect, but it's really hard to do this. Okay, and here is 2/10. Right, so you should have colored in 2 of those tenths. And if I were to go to a page that looks similar to yours and color it in very quickly, I'm just gonna do a line so you can see. I'm not gonna color it all in because I want to be quick and I want to be efficient. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, so now we need to write this as a fraction and as a decimal. I want to write my fraction in tenths. How many tenths did I tell you to shade in? Good. I told you to shade in 2/10. How do I write that as a decimal? Good. 0.2. Because tenths is the first place after the decimal. All right, now I want to write it in a fraction form with 100 as my denominator. So we got to think, what fraction is equivalent to 2/10? I will remind you, earlier we said 1/10 was the same thing as saying 10 hundredths. Do y'all remember that? So if I have 2/10, essentially I have 10 hundredths plus 10 hundredths, which is going to give me, good, 20 hundredths. Now, how do I write that as a decimal? Good job. 0.20 or 20. And we always read a decimal based on the last digit, the last place value that's represented. And the 0 is here, which is in the hundredths place. So I would read this as 20 hundredths. We good? All right, let's see what we're going to do next. This time, I want you guys to color in or find 45 hundredths using brown with a color pencil on your B grid B, okay? Color it brown. 45 hundredths. If you need extra time, be sure to pause this video. All right, 45, so here we go. That's 10. Here's 20. Oh, Miss Trammell cannot move these things very easily. Here's 30. Here's 40. Can I add another 10? No, I need to add hundredths now. Here's 41, 42, 43, and 44. Am I done? Nope. And 45. So yours should look like this. And if you colored your 5 on the bottom, maybe like this, that is completely okay. So here's 10, here's 20, I'll do it again, 30, here's 40, and then I'm going to do the opposite 5 this time, just for people who may have done it differently. Are we good? All right, so let's write it as a fraction. 45 hundredths is what I asked you to find. If I were to write this fraction, can I write it with tenths? There might be some discussion about maybe you could if you put 4.5 over 10. But for our purposes in 4th grade, I'm going to say we're going to leave the tenths part blank, and we are going to fill in our hundredths. And I can fill in my decimal as well. 45 hundredths. I can't put 45 in the tenths place because 4 is in the tenths place. So I have not been able to fill out my tenths for this right here. Okay, let's look at C. So turn the page and let's see what we got to do for C. It says now you need your green color pencil, and this time I want you to find 25 hundredths. Color it in green. And if you finish coloring it in green, go ahead and write out the fraction and the decimal. Okay? All right, are you done? If not, then keep up with me. So we have 25 hundredths. So that means I need 20 green and then another 5. I think I'm getting better moving these pieces, guys. So here's my 25, and maybe you've already written it as a fraction as well, which would be awesome. So here's what that looks like as a fraction. Can we write 25 over 100 as a fraction with tenths? Again, we could have some conversations about doing 2.5 over 10, but we really don't need to do that because we can just write it as hundredths. So let's do that. 25 hundredths. And that is 0.25, or I can just put decimal 25, and that would technically be the same thing. Ready for the next one? Perfect. You guys are moving right along, so let's see. We now have to shade in purple, 5/10 purple. Go ahead and shade it in. All right, I'm going to work to shade mine in, so if you're not done, pause this video if you're watching it independently so that you can finish yours as well. So I need 5/10, which means I'm taking 5 1/10, 5 1/10. And one more. Okay, now can we write 5/10 as a fraction with tenths in the denominator? Absolutely yes. And so I shall do that. Let me change my color here to purple. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got my 5/10. And here's how I write it as a fraction, so check your work, please. 5/10, or 0.5. Or I have shaded in technically 50 of the hundredth size pieces. So that's 50 hundredths. So 5/10 and 50 hundredths are indeed equivalent. All right, last one before we do something special, okay? And that is on grid E. This time using orange, I want you to find 70 hundredths and color it in orange. 70 hundredths. And I will give you a moment to do that. All right, are we ready? All right, 70 hundredths would look something like this. 1, or 10, I should say, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. Count by tens makes it so much quicker. All right, so they asked for me to do 70 hundredths, so I can go ahead and fill in my fraction for hundredths and my decimal, because hopefully you guys are doing this like so quickly by now. What about my tenths? How many tenths did I shade in? 7 tenths. Awesome, which means my decimal is going to have a 7 in my tenths place and nothing after it. All right, now for our very special problem for letter F. This time, it's an addition problem. And I'll forewarn you and say that you're going to have to create an equivalent fraction, much like what we were doing this whole time. So I want you to find 3/10 and color it in blue. So do that first. Find 3/10 and color it in blue. And once you've done that, then I want you to find 67 hundredths and color it in red. And my question to you is, what is the total? What is the total? So we know we're doing 3/10 and 67 hundredths. 3/10 in blue, 67 hundredths in red. Go for it. Alright guys, here's my 3/10. And I can write my fraction here. 3/10 is 0.3. And I know I want to know the total, but I'm going to leave this one blank for now, and I'm going to go ahead and do my 67 hundredths. So that means 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. I know this is 5, 65, 66, 67. And I can write that 67 hundredths, which is 0.67. So, how are we supposed to add that together? We got to create some common denominators. 3/10. So what I'm really asking you to do is this. 3/10 plus 67 hundredths. And I cannot do that unless I do what we've been talking about lately, which is making it so that you can combine it. They have to have like terms, okay? And I can do that by writing 3/10 as a fraction with hundredths. So how many hundredths in 3/10? 30 hundredths. And it would look like this. Kind of like adding a zero here. Not adding a zero, but putting a zero placeholder in the hundredths place. So now if I have 30 hundredths plus 67 hundredths, how many do I have? We can look at your picture here. Good. I have a total of 97 hundredths. Ooh, that was some good work today. But we needed to get that done because we're going to be playing a game later on this month where we're adding tenths and hundredths. So we spent time reviewing equivalent fractions with tenths and hundredths and identifying or locating tenths and hundredths on a grid. We even did one example with adding so that when we start playing our game this month, you are ready. So that will be all for our number corner for today. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you tomorrow for Friday's version of Number Corner. Bye.